Hello, and welcome back to Stories from the Wilderness. My name is Patrick, and in the last episode, we talked about mercy, the kind that finds you not when you've got it all figured out, but when you're at the end of yourself. That kind of mercy doesn't wait for you to be ready. It shows up in the dust and stays with you there. This time, I want to talk about what comes next, not the polished version, just the next step. The quiet, slow walk of faith that keeps going when you're still carrying questions, when your heart's not whole yet, and the road ahead looks more uncertain than clear. The poem I'm reading today is called Faith with Feet in the Dust. It came out of a season where I was beginning to see that real faith isn't always loud or certain. Sometimes it looks like showing up tired. Sometimes it limps. Sometimes it walks with dust in its mouth and hope in its hands. This isn't a victory speech. It's a field note, a journal entry from the road. I'll read the poem first, then the commentary that followed. Wherever this finds you, thank you for being here. Faith with Feet in the Dust was written after the second chapter from the book of James. Not the disciple James. This is James, the brother of Jesus, a man who didn't believe in him at first, who likely grew up under the same roof, ate at the same table, and still didn't see it until the resurrection changed everything. And when it did, James gave his life to the gospel. He became a pillar of the early church in Jerusalem, a shepherd with a pastor's heart. His letter is short, but it doesn't pull any punches. It's gritty, direct, and grounded in everyday life. James chapter 2 is where faith and action meet. It's where he tells us that belief without movement isn't alive. It's theory. He talks about showing mercy without favoritism, about loving people who can't pay you back, about the kind of faith that doesn't just speak, but acts, breathes, not a perfect faith, not a loud one, but a real one, the kind with feet, the kind that walks through the dust. Here is the poem, Faith with Feet in the Dust. Partiality and mercy. They entered wearing different clothes, and one had a jacket that whispered wealth. The other carried weather in his skin, and the room turned quiet, not with malice, just instinct, the kind we don't question, because it feels like order. But the kingdom does not sort by shine. It comes through the poor man's coat and the rich man's ache. It has no favorite seat. It does not wait for credentials. It breaks the circle we thought was protection. You believe in God. Good. Even demons do. But belief that stays in the mouth dies there. What you do with your hands. There's the question, who do you feed? Who do you clothe? Who do you let interrupt your day? These are the echoes of true faith. There are no gold stars in the gospel, no polite applause for agreeing with what you've never lived. The brother who walks in hungry has no use for your blessing if your pantry stays closed. Mercy is not a sentiment. It is movement dash dash, a body bending toward another. This is the deal, that faith and works are not rivals, but companions. They walk together across the field, each carrying what the other cannot, and judgment, when it comes, will not ask what you believed. When the lights were low and the music was soft, it will ask whom you lifted when the world was lost. Sacrifice and breath. There is a moment when belief stops being silent, not a declaration, but a gesture, a hand raised without knowing where it will land. Abraham on the mountain, Isaac breathing beneath him, and no proof but the voice he heard days ago. This is not metaphor. This is blood and wood, and the breath caught between trust and trembling. Rahab opened her door to strangers, not knowing how the story would end, but she believed it meant something to protect the strangers. She could have let go. She was not righteous. By resume, she was righteous. By risk. Faith, when it lives in the tension between command and response, between what we cannot see and what we still choose to do. Without that, faith is a body on a table, skin still warm. But soul departed, so we return to the ones with dust. On their shoes, calloused palms, a meal carried, and to someone who forgot how to ask, we return. To the movement of mercy, the action of belief, the weight of love measured in footsteps. This is faith, not still, but breathing. As the body without the spirit is dead, so faith without works is dead. James 2:26. This poem came out of some hard questions I didn't write down at first, just carried around for a while. They started to echo louder after spending time in James, because James doesn't just invite us to believe something, he asks us to live like it's true. James doesn't give us a way to keep our faith comfortable. He ties it to movement and mercy. Whether or not we open the door when someone knocks is a test. He doesn't argue theology. He watches how we live. The questions he raises aren't abstract. They're grounded. Who do we welcome when they walk into the room? Who do we feed when we have more than we need? Who do we make room for, even if it costs us something? The poem came from sitting with those questions, letting them turn over in me. It's easy to say we believe, but belief that never makes it to our hands and feet and never interferes with our preferences or patterns has no weight. James calls that kind of faith dead, not to shame us, but to wake us. Mercy, he says, should move, not just feel something, but do something. That has always stayed with me. There's a line in the poem about how faith and works are not rivals, but allies. I believe that. They hold each other up. Faith breathes life into action, and action gives shape to belief. One without the other is thin, but together they tell the truth. The second half of the poem lingers with Abraham and Rahab, both of them standing in the tension between risk and obedience. Abraham doesn't have proof, only a voice he heard days ago. Rahab doesn't know how it ends. Both, however, take action. That's what faith does when it's alive. This isn't about earning anything from God. It's about answering him. Faith becomes visible in the moments we give away, through our hands, at our tables, in the time we no longer call our own. James ends the chapter with the image of faith without works being like a body without breath. That image stayed with me. It's haunting, but it's honest. If our faith never walks, never bends, never feeds, then we're carrying something that only looks like life. So maybe faith moves quietly before the need is named. Maybe it begins building where no one sees, like creation before the light. Make it anyway. It moves through ordinary moments that don't feel holy until they are. That's where grace puts on shoes. That's where love does its job. That's where faith goes to work. So that's where I'll leave it for now. Faith that moves, mercy that walks, dust on our shoes and hope in our hands. Thanks for sharing this time with me. Keep walking, even if it's slow. Grace is never far behind. Thanks for being here. See you next time.